Welcome, friends. Welcome, family. What's going on, Ma? Welcome you guys to a watch list watch party for a Monday. Good to see you guys here. It is actually the best damn day of the week, as normally on a Monday. Jumping back to the damage report after this. Apologies for the 15 minutes of lateness. There's a lot that goes on this weekend. Mondays have to be some of the toughest days with this particular administration in office. I'm just going to give you guys a couple seconds as we jump in here because there's lots to talk about. There was a lot that I was wanting to talk about. And honestly, it took a very long time to get all this, trying to get somewhat organized to talk about so many things that we experienced and so many things that we're understanding this administration to be. I mean, people that didn't realize before. Yes, it is all at the fault and the feet of these folks who claim no responsibility for anything they've ever done. As you guys come in, let's just jump right into it. I'm sure many of you guys have seen what's been going on, but I'm already a little bit late because of the degree of the things that are going on. I want you guys to see this. Just an update in case you haven't seen what's been going on or the degree to which things have been going on.
Rain fell in just hours early morning of July 4th, which triggered flash flooding across parts of central Texas. The original forecast called for 5 to 7 inches of rain to fall, but what actually happened is some places got as much as 15 inches, which triggered that ravaging flooding. Officials say at least 80 people have died, including dozens of children in Kerr County, where several girls and one camp counselor are still missing from Camp Mystic.
We will do everything humanly possible 24/7, looking at every tree, turning over every rock, whatever it takes, if your child is one of those truly missing and not just out of touch, to find your daughter.
Volunteers are currently searching for survivors and loved ones who went missing.
If it was my babies, I would know somebody lucky, so that's why I'm here.
There are dangers over the next 24 to 48 hours that could pose public safety threats to people in these regions. There is heavy rainfall that's already occurred, and there's more heavy rainfall that's expected that will lead to potential flash flooding.
More of the same. So in Texas, as we've seen, there's parts that flooded over that unheard of rainfall or unpredicted rainfall from the National Weather Service, which we'll get into more. But as you noticed, they mentioned it before. The lieutenant governor stepped in there and said things that he don't care really about. Camp Mystic, a camp, I think a girls' camp out there in Texas, was one of the main stories of the devastation that hit. CNN reported on how bad that was and some of the updated numbers on the folks that they've lost.
Camp Mystic just released a statement about its campers and counselors. Let's get right to CNN anchor Pam Brown, who is nearby for the latest. Pam, what are you hearing?
This is the first time Camp Mystic is releasing a statement with the number of deaths. And in this statement, John, Camp Mystic says it is grieving the loss of 27 campers and counselors following the catastrophic flooding on the Guadalupe River. The statement goes on to say, our hearts are broken alongside our families that are enduring this unimaginable tragedy. We are praying for them constantly. 27 young souls, these young campers, John, and young counselors. Remember, these counselors are teenagers for the most part. Many of them jumped into action. They were heroes. But as we are getting from this statement, some died as well. Camp Mystic did not say how many of those 27 were campers versus counselors, but presumably the bulk of them are campers. And I just can't stop thinking, John, that it was just a little over a week ago that parents dropped their young children off to have the best 4 weeks of their life at Camp Mystic, a camp I attended 30 years ago. And now some of those same parents are going to the local funeral home to potentially identify their child. It's just beyond comprehension, the heartbreak here. You feel it all around.
So how many of these stories have we heard? Doesn't have to be necessarily flooding, it could be school shootings. There's many things that the people that our tax dollars are supposed to pay to implement things for us to continue to live prosperously, and literally survive in this world, and specifically in this country, that continue to be failed. So more children dead, more adults that are also taking care of these children dead, other folks that just live in the area without much of a notice as to things that were coming, as we've seen in previous years because of obvious reasons. We'll get to more of that, of course. But there was response to it as well, as we've seen the devastation that's happening, and we just have to ask the leaders for their answers. And sadly, the answers are never good enough. This is what the president had to say.
Democrats are claiming more federal cuts for the debts over in Texas. Yeah, go ahead.
She asked about the federal cuts, that reporter, that he had, that the Trump administration has implemented, talking about saving all this money so they could pass that bill that they just passed and signed on July 4th. He couldn't hear her, though, so he just moved on because he heard her and he didn't want to answer it. But the problem is there was other reporters then that continued to ask him what it was that was going on. And he, standing there with his buddy Howard Lutnick, wanted to avoid that question at any means necessary because, honestly, they just don't give a damn.
Okay. Are you investigating whether some of the cuts to the federal government left key vacancies at the National Weather Service or in the emergency coordination?
No, they did not. They did. I'll tell you, if you look at that, what a situation that all is. And that was really the Biden setup. That was not our setup, but I wouldn't blame Biden for it either. I would just say this is a 100-year catastrophe, and it's just so horrible to watch. I'm planning to visit Texas. Okay.
Are you
It was the Biden administration, as usual. I mean, it was the knee-jerk answer that he always has to give. And then after he gave it, he said, wait a second, that might sound really bad because it's obvious that I've been in office this whole time and I've implemented these things and cut all these programs and said that we're going to save all this money that I'm actually giving to rich people. On the back end, when disaster strikes, as they pointed out before, he's absolutely and woefully underprepared. Same thing they said when those planes were having issues and they were talking about not the FAA, but the aviations and the people that are there to actually make sure safety is in the skies for the American people. The American people, they don't give a hot damn about. So again, it goes right back to making sure that they don't have any responsibility or accountability for their own actions and decisions. It's Howard Lutnick sitting there going, no. Nobody asked your ass any questions. Your dumb ass is there to be an ass kisser, not to actually answer any questions because you never do that. By the way, where are those damn deals? They had more things that they didn't want to talk about because they hate this country.
Are you still planning to phase out FEMA?
Well, FEMA is something we can talk about later, but right now they're busy working, so we'll leave it at that. Go ahead.
Are you still?
The president doesn't want to talk about FEMA right now. We can talk about FEMA later. Maybe talk about FEMA later when it's needed again. Or maybe we should talk about how you talked about FEMA before, back when you were talking about how disastrous it is and how this upcoming hurricane season, despite all the people that know what they're talking about and how FEMA actually does something for them if they utilize it correctly, but instead you're completely stripping it of everything and its usefulness. Because again, it goes right back to that bill that they passed at the end of last week so they can give rich people more money. I want to show you guys the direct result of the decisions that they're making and how they celebrate on July 4th for freedom as these children died at their camp because of the decisions that these guys made about money for rich people. They continue to be on this.
We want to off of FEMA, and we want to bring it down to the state level. A little bit like education, we're moving it back to the states so the governors can handle it. That's why they're governors now. They can't handle it. They shouldn't be governor. But these governors can handle it, and they'll work in conjunction with other governors. They'll give each other a hand. But the FEMA thing has not been a very successful experiment. Very, very expensive, and it doesn't get the job done. You saw what happened in North Carolina under the past administration. And when we got in, we did a great job for North Carolina, brought it back. But it was a disaster, FEMA. And it has not worked out well. It's extremely expensive. And again, when you have a tornado or a hurricane or you have a problem of any kind in a state, that's what you have governors for. They're supposed to fix those problems. And it's much more local, and they'll develop a system, and I think it'll be a great system.
How soon?
He wants to eliminate FEMA. Maybe the governors should do something about it. They should actually work harder. And if the governors can take control of the situations that happen in their states, we won't need FEMA anymore. Well, Governor Abbott is the governor of Texas. Good buddy, right-hand man of Donald Trump, kisses his ass very efficiently. So what's this loser governor going to do? Because his state is in absolute disarray, specifically all these children that died because they didn't have much of a way to notify folks in a timely manner, which usually happens because of the cuts that this guy made. But I want to let you guys hear more of what he had to say about the things that go on with FEMA, and specifically the governors, like the ones he talked about in, say, California and any states that he actually hates, how they've handled natural disasters and what it is that they should probably do. Because, FEMA is way too expensive for rich people to have to continue to contribute anything to the country to be a part of.
This, Christy, I said the hurricane season will
Yes, sir.
start
You
phasing
set up
in.
a FEMA council over the next couple of months. We'll be working on reforms and what FEMA will look like in the future as a different agency, as under the Department of Homeland Security to the president's vision. And it will empower governors to go out and respond to emergency situations. And that what the president does best is to make sure that the taxpayers are only fulfilling the need to which is appropriate, and that people are responsible to respond to their own people closest to home. So
If a certain state, as an example, gets hit by a hurricane or tornado, that's what a governor should be able to handle it. And frankly, if they can handle it, the aftermath, then maybe they shouldn't be governor.
Maybe they shouldn't be governor. If they can't handle the aftermath, how about preparing for the actual disaster before it gets there? Because, it's 2025 and we have all this technology in ways that we can predict things to the best of our abilities to at least warn enough people to limit the number of people killed and the damage that it could take on so many other folks. But, it was way too expensive. And, if a governor can't handle it, maybe they shouldn't be governor. Donald Trump is looking at you, Abbott, and Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. They're looking at you. So if you can't handle this, because these children and their counselors and people who run this camp died, along with just other regular folks that are living in their houses that maybe didn't get those warnings. Because again, we're shutting down FEMA. We've fired so many percentages of people from the National Weather Service and the overseeing agency that also controls that agency. All for the sake of those DOGE cuts that we've heard folks within this administration talk about was complete and utter BS. There's a reason why Elon Musk is on the outs with them now, because there's some people who actually believed the things that he was saying, but really they didn't. They just wanted you to believe the things that we're saying so that you could sit here and watch floodwaters come at you at record paces, which you could have maybe been forewarned for before it got there. Oh, but that's too expensive. They want taxes and they want to toss you some middle fingers. We're seeing it in direct real time. We're seeing it stare right down the barrel of the gun. People die when there's this level of incompetent leadership within our country. Direct incompetent leadership. They think they can strip everything from the way this country runs, the fact that we pay taxes so that we can actually live and survive. So when they take those things away, it's the same thing that's going to happen with all these people. There's millions and tens of millions of people that they're booting off of Medicaid. But they're just too lazy. In other words, your life means nothing. Give me more money if you don't have it, because it's going to continue to increase as we've seen it increase. If you don't have that increasing amount of money as we strip jobs and opportunities from people, you just die. That is the rallying cry for this administration. Matter of fact, I think you guys heard on the back end that idiot Kristi Noem was talking about doing things in the right, the vision of the president. Well, she went on Fox News to try to explain away some of this madness and the things that she's been a part of since she's the head of the Department of Homeland Security. Listen to this idiot.
You stood next to the president as he talked about dismantling FEMA in favor of greater autonomy and targeted resources under the control of state and local officials. Does this tragic situation underscore that need for you, or does that change that dynamic of what would work best moving forward?
I think what we've seen here is exactly what President Trump has envisioned for FEMA is immediately allowing the state to do the response and supporting them in every way that they can. So this response was driven by Governor Abbott and his emergency management director and the local officials that were on the ground. And we were immediately there to fill in the gaps where they needed and to give them their disaster declaration as soon as possible, which happened almost immediately as soon as the governor asked. That's the FEMA and how it should operate, rather than how it operated under the Biden administration and previous administrations, where it was slow to respond, slow to get resources there. We already have emergency response teams on the ground that have been there from the very beginning. And then we want to empower the states to do the response that's necessary to best serve their people. So, the FEMA that President Trump wants in place is one that takes care of people, but also empowers those people who live in those communities that know how best to respond to have the authority to do so.
Those people in those communities that have the best way to respond and have the authority to do so, just not the money to do so, maybe not have the resources to do so, because again, there's this federal government thing that we pay our tax dollars, state and federal tax dollars, to go towards to pay for things like this. It's not a giveaway. It's our damn money. But again, Kristi Noem wants you to believe that you don't deserve the things that you paid for. You can go to a grocery store, give them $100 and walk out with nothing. And do you expect the grocery store to say, come on, bro, what do you expect me to give you something for your money? They flipped everything completely on its head and make you believe that your money is supposed to go to rich people who then don't contribute anything to society except for a promise that one day, maybe on an outside chance, that you might get an opportunity as they implement things to strip you of those opportunities to get anywhere in life. And you're going to sit there and let them do it. Kristi Noem wasn't done being a complete a-hole. She was still trying to defend herself further, and Donald Trump specifically, on how horrible this response has been and how ridiculous this has all been. But it's still not their fault. Here's this idiot still going on.
But frankly, the National Weather Service under President Trump has been working to put in new technology and a new system because it's been neglected for years. It's an ancient system that needed to be upgraded. And so President Trump recognized that right away and got to work on it when he came into office in January. But that installation is not complete and that technology isn't fully installed, but the alerts went out. We can continue to learn from every single situation, but know that during these times when we are trying to help people heal from situations like this, the best thing to do is to look and see how we can help and how we can walk alongside people and get them some relief. Make sure that we're doing all that we can to be more proactive in the future, but get through this terrible time right now as well.
Sure, but it was.
But frankly, the National.
They were upgrading the National Weather Service under Trump. Do you guys remember the upgrading of the National Weather Service under Donald Trump, when they were talking about and celebrating the cuts that they're doing to the National Weather Service and everything else under Donald Trump? Or maybe those normal upgrades that happened of the National Weather Service throughout the past 10, 15 years of these movements that are being made. But when there's halts and changes within the system, as they want you to believe weren't actually happening, even though they celebrated those things happening. There's a Texas Tribune article that specifically shows some of the things that they were talking about doing that they actually did, so that now that the results of those decisions have become deadly for many people that probably voted for this ass clown. So now that that's happening, they don't want you to remember this. I'm gonna read a couple pieces from this article from the Texas Tribune of the reality of the situation beforehand. This article is from June 9th, just about a month ago, a month before this thing happened. This hurricane season is going to be underway, and an above normal activity forecast is on its way. Some National Weather Service offices like Houston, where as many as 44% of positions are vacant, are operating with staff shortages, prompting concerns about their capacity to monitor future storms. June 9th, this article was written. The shortages stem from federal cuts that slashed roughly 10% of National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's workforce and triggered a wave of early retirements. With no staff members from the Houston and Galveston office when they were laid off, several hundred employees at NOAA, which hosts the National Weather Service, took a voluntary early retirement package. Among those stepping down, Jeff Evans, he's a longtime meteorologist in charge of Houston, and he retired after 34 years at the National Weather Service. And he was talking about how disturbing this is. The Houston office itself has 11 vacancies. That's that 44% number. Only 11 vacancies, but it does this much that maybe helps so many other people. Bro, it's the beginning of July. The hurricane season is just upon us. The National Weather Service provides weather warnings for tornadoes, hurricanes, wildfires, and floods, and produces river and hydrological outlooks and long-term climate change data. It serves as the forecast of record for many, including TV meteorologists, journalists, and researchers, as well as emergency managers who use it to plan for potential evacuations and rescue coordination during extreme weather events. There's a lot more in this article. Look up the Texas Tribune article. This title is "Staff Vacancies Hit Texas Weather Offices as They Brace for a Busy Hurricane Season." So all those people with Trump derangement syndrome were talking about how these cuts were going to kill people. All those people that still have Trump derangement syndrome were talking about how these cuts to everything else that they've done, including now this bill that they just passed that's taking away healthcare from tens of millions of people, will kill people. This is why we can't sit back and wait for the midterms, because, you know, eventually MAGA folks are going to figure it out and they'll finally vote against this guy. Maybe enough of them will, or maybe enough of them will continue to buy that line of this is still Joe Biden's fault. But those folks, like 5 to 10 to 12-year-old children at this camp, they don't get a chance to vote. In fact, they don't get a chance to live. There are consequences for pushing this and allowing these guys to run rampant and hope that one day they'll figure it out, or hope that one day, as they tell you, they know what they're doing wrong, and that's the whole plan. And as your children die, as your parents die, as your brothers and sisters die, and as your ass dies, they don't give a damn. The plan is to raid your pockets and let you die. Do we call them fascists yet? Or is that not allowed? Or will that offend people? Will calling them the fascists that they are offend them? So that maybe they'll stop doing the things they're doing, or maybe we won't lose too many more elections to people who literally told us they're looking to destroy your life to take your money. There's another element to this, you guys. Some folks decided to respond to it as well. Ted Cruz's dumbass was out there as well, because obviously Ted Cruz represents, or he's a senator from Texas, doesn't represent anybody. He's just a senator from there. And he was talking with Fox News' Lawrence Jones. Lawrence Jones wanted to ask him, yo, you guys are screwing things up. When are you going to do something different? But Lawrence Jones works for Fox News, and he can't ask the question that way. He has to say, I know you guys are doing things great, but what's going wrong? I want you guys to understand that that's the phrasing of the question, when in reality, this guy probably shouldn't even be there showing his face.
You know, I know there's been some that want to politicize this senator, and we kind of got to push them aside. Yeah. But we got to do something different when it comes to protecting our girls, our kids, our community. What can we do? I mean, 45 minutes? Adults can't even respond in that time.
Well, look, there's a staging and ordering of things. The first thing with any crisis is search and rescue. And search and rescue is still ongoing. There are 10 girls missing. Our prayers are that those girls will still be found. After the search and rescue, you've got to just rebuild. I mean, you look at the wreckage here, and this wreckage, the number of homes and RVs and cabins that have been damaged. But there's no doubt afterwards we're going to have a serious retrospective, as you do with any disaster.
That's right.
And say, okay, what could have been done differently to prevent this disaster? And look, the fact that you have girls asleep in their cabins when the floodwaters are rising, something went wrong there. We've got to fix that and have a better system of warning to get kids out of harm's way.
We need a better system of warning to help people get out of harm's way. That better system of warning was cut with 40, just specifically in that office, 44% of its staff and meteorologists and people before this even happened said, this is a disaster. This is going to be tough. And even some of them said, we're going to tighten our belts and still get it done with our shortened staff cut damn near in half, and ways that we can potentially predict things like this and give those warnings. If only there was a system, Ted Cruz, he should get his ass out of Texas. before someone finds him. And as he sweeps and looks at the damage, look at this disaster in front of us, Lawrence. Can you believe as children were sleeping in their beds? We can believe it. We keep hearing about it. We heard about children in their classrooms who got shot up as well. And what we heard from you guys was, we just need some thoughts and a couple of prayers to throw your way instead of doing anything about it. Instead, we have a president who said he's going to cut the things that did something about it. That's Ted Cruz. The guy got heckled in New York, and then we laughed about it. I posted that too. The guy got heckled in New York, and we all laughed about it because he's a disaster, because he hates this country, because at one point he was in opposition to Donald Trump. But then Donald Trump kicked his ass around, and he's a softie, and he talked about his father and his wife. And now he's doing the bidding of the same guy as people die. Here's another one of them.
That state and federal resources have just poured into that area. Is there anything more that can be done congressionally, legislatively to help?
Is there anything?
In a moment like this, we feel just as helpless as everyone else does. I've talked to my colleagues there in Texas, Chip Roy and August Pfluger, whose families, that's Chip's district. August's daughters were at the camp. We also had Betty Carter of Georgia, had grandchildren there. It touches so many families, and all we need to do at this moment is pray. Every available resource has been deployed. The president, of course, is dialed in and watching this develop moment by moment as we are, and we'll handle supplemental funding requests as they come in. But right now, they're still trying to do rescue and recovery, and our hearts go out to all of them.
Well, that state and federal resources.
All Mike Johnson can do right now is pray. Because right now all he can do is pray. But on Thursday and Friday, dude was standing in front of podiums and had a bunch of his crew behind him celebrating, passing a bill that'll make more of this happen. But right now, all they can do is pray. He can only pray about it and then hope that maybe someone in charge, maybe leadership within the country can do something about it as they celebrate that they're in leadership positions now of the country. If only we could have done something about it. Who knows? If only we could do something about the people that are going to die next week and the people that are going to die next month. And the people are going to die the month after that. If only there's something now in July that we can do about people that are going to die at the end of July. They're going to die in August. If only there's something we could do besides just pray about it. You sorry some bitch. That's all you can do. That's all this guy can do. I'm telling you, that's what they're offering you. Are you willing to accept that? They can offer you that, and they can also offer you that it was Joe Biden's fault. Here's another one of those pieces of garbage that decided to tell us what it is that they're concerned with doing. J.D. Vance said, our nation heartbreaks for the victims in Texas and their families. It's just an incomprehensible tragedy. It's incomprehensible. We have no idea. I hope everyone affected knows that they're in the prayers of my family and the millions of Americans. Nobody that's affected gives a hot damn which prayers they're in for you, who was a part of making sure that they need some prayer now to be comforted by the loss of their loved ones. That's what they're offering up to you. A couple of prayers after their policies do something else. Let me show you what Donald Trump was offering, because they keep talking about how he's this great deal maker. He's a wonderful guy. Matter of fact, his policies are saving Americans, saving this country, make America great again for the folks who are now dead. Let me show you what this guy was doing. This is reported by a couple of folks who said that he was off golfing on the weekend, and that's hard to believe, isn't it? So maybe this is fake, or maybe this is what he does every damn weekend. There he is, walking around with his same golfing uniform on, licking a damn ice cream cone. That's what your president has been doing. As then again, you mourn and pray, and his vice president is talking about how saddened they are by this entire tragedy. And maybe you're in my thoughts and my prayers. You're not in his thought nor his prayer, because he's never had either one of those. That's what your president's doing. Are you still happy about this? Are you going to go and maybe toss up a couple fund me's for the people who've been devastated by this whole thing? Because, by the way, that's the way they expect you to continue to fund disasters in this country with your dollars out of your pocket after you've paid more dollars out of your pocket for taxes that didn't go to any of this. Put up a GoFundMe, go to your local church, do those things, because that's how we take care of things in a failing country. That rich people are now doing weddings in Italy and taking over entire cities and inviting in 100 other multimillionaires to go and celebrate their lives while you're dying. Are we seeing it yet? Are we seeing it yet? We don't need any help from any people who finally figured it out. If you finally figured it out and you're part of MAGA and some kind of MAGA leadership or MAGA talkers or pundits and all that, nobody needs you to be like on a team in order to do something different. How about instead of needing someone to be nice to you and rub you on your dumbass head, maybe you can be a part of the solution because you maybe figured it out. Why does someone need to be nice to you now? Is the president nice to you? They give middle fingers and hateful remarks about who you are and what you deserve and how you should get a job. But we're supposed to be nice to the people who helped this regime come into power so that maybe they can be a part of helping it, to take it out. That's not who they are. Here's one of the local officials, because earlier, as I talked about, Donald Trump and them and Kristi Noem, we're all talking about how the governors, if they can't handle their situation, maybe they shouldn't be governors. How about the local officials as well? They get the same marching orders that all these MAGA folks give. They're mad about the questions being asked.
One more question.
Yeah, well, one of the questions that still hasn't been answered 3 days into this is, despite TEM's warning on July 2nd and July 3rd that something like this could have happened, that the threat existed, why that information didn't get down to the camps and why they weren't evacuated. Can you answer that now?
That is a great question, but again, we want to make sure that we continue to focus. We still have 11 missing children that we want to get reunited with our families. Until we can get reunited with our families, we are not going to stop. We are not going to stop until we do. So thank you.
Follow-up question, sir. Was any emergency alert given out on the 4th, that morning of? Did anyone get
Sir,
any
there are
alert?
families who deserve better than that.
One more question.
Yeah.
There are families that deserve better than that. And this official, this little more local official that's supposed to be part of this, walked his cowardly ass off. You see this guy behind him? It's Chip Roy. Representative Chip Roy, who's had some fire for people before. This guy, he's had some fire for him before. And he's had some pushback with Donald Trump before he capitulated at every term. He walked out with this crew of cowards that decided not to answer any questions about why they were underprepared as people died. And as that reporter asked at the end, you know what? Families deserve better than this. Why are you here? Always remember their faces because they don't give a damn about you. It's just the way it is. This is how this government operates. I remember people saying that this government would operate this way, and they were considered crazy. Here's that same official. I don't even know his name, but he's the Kerrville city manager, the area where all that went down. And guess who else he has to blame? Guess who else he has to blame? You're going to get a good signal for who it is he's been listening to and who he thinks has great answers for these things when it's their disaster that they just perpetuated and made sure it was much worse than it ever could have been.
How in the world you could have so many campers in the way of this danger and not taken out of there ahead of this?
Yeah, that's the question of the hour. But with these, this is last time it was this bad, and this one is even worse than that. Was 1987. You can't predict it. Everybody in the media even knows, everybody who does this and sees this every single day, you have the inverse effect of if you continue to push it, and you see this in Houston areas all the time, you cry wolf. What happens when you continue to ramp things up and you continue to put a lot of information out there? Again, not to harp on the media, but there's a lot of stuff that gets overspun up, and we see that way too often, and then that trickles down. So we did look at stuff. Obviously, I had told the story. I was out on the river trail at 3:30. I left about 4 o'clock. We did not see any signs of the river rising. And by 5:20, we almost weren't able to get out of the park on the upper end. It rose that quickly.
How in the world you can have?
It's Dalton Rice, I believe his name is. It rose that quickly. They had no idea how to figure this whole thing out. It just rose that quickly. If only there was a way we could have figured it out and seen something coming our way. He should at least be honest. Like, my job would have been to coordinate a way to mitigate the level of disaster and casualties that we'd have in an event like this. But there's things that were cut that didn't give me that opportunity. They have to kind of dance around it, but instead he blames the media for hyperventilating and overblowing things and hyping things up too much. So someone should ask this guy, was it hyped up too much for everyone who right now today is mourning the loss of their children and their loved ones that were lost? Is it overblown? Is the degree to which we're talking about this overblown? Are those folks' lives not worth us overblowing this whole tragedy? Or should we just think and pray about it and move on and act like they never existed the way that these guys are doing? You have to pay attention to the people who are actually your enemies instead of the gay hairstylist or the trans athlete that runs track. Those people that they told you that you're supposed to hate, instead, maybe hate the people that are killing you for money. Isn't that weird? We call those hitmen. Someone who gets paid to let you die or specifically target you. If you target organizations that make sure people's lives are saved, you're making sure that they die. You know it because those organizations were put in place to make sure people survive. But they're greedy. That's an aspect of capitalism, that thing that we're supposed to worship and be all a part of. Capitalism is the best system on earth. And as long as we continue to have capitalism, which, by the way, it only exists when you can step on other people in order to fulfill yourself. So the system of capitalism is supposed to make sure that you destroy other people's lives so that the people at the top have more. It's an unlimited degree to which we're doing this. And if there's any other system in place, oh my God, you're trying to destroy the country. Again, I've only said it 8 times because it's been true every time. Look at the faces of all those folks that died and maybe tell the family members that unfettered capitalism is great for their life. Maybe tell them that and see if they want to celebrate and go, you know what, you're right. My 8-year-old daughter is dead and I love capitalism for it. Just make them answer the question. It's a direct result of the way that we do things here. It's not supposed to be limited. It's supposed to kill and it's supposed to take money. I'll show you guys one more video. I got to do the damage report in a few minutes. They're probably calling me right now. But you know what? There's one other aspect. We saw all these folks die, and I know we've been focusing on the children in this particular camp, Mystic, that were victims of this, and also the other camp counselors and adults that were there that died. But this is an entire area as flooding went down and the underreported, underpredicted storm to the degree that it would become came. There's other folks that have other ways and other people that they're living for. And this crosses over to the whole healthcare thing as well. These are the people that they don't care about as their lives are destroyed and turned upside down. I want you guys to see a real situation that's happened with these Texans living in their house before the flood hit that they didn't see coming.
Okay, my house is, anybody out there? I have my dad on hospice and I need to get him out of here. He's bedridden. He can't walk. He can hardly move. And look where the water is. So somebody, please, we've called 911. It's bad over here. In front of the house, it's like a river. I mean, it's like a lake. They can't come look. We've lost our cars, everything. We've lived here for 30 years and this has never happened. So anybody, please, if you have a boat or something, I need help. I need to get my dad out of here. It's starting to smell like sewer in here.
Isn't that crazy? So this lady's dad is in hospice. He can't move. He's on the bed and the floodwaters are literally at the side of his bed. And it's starting to smell like sewage in here. By the way, all you crazy leftists, are you radicals out there? I guess you should probably stop talking about climate change that you've been talking about for the past 30 years. That would increase the levels of storms and the degrees of things that happen like this, at the same time cutting the predictability from the services that maybe warn people as those storms are surging at rates that have never seen before. All those crazy people talking about what's going to happen to our atmosphere and our climate and the severity of these storms getting worse. This lady just said they've been living there for 30 years and we've never seen a storm like this. So combine the nature of ignoring that and actually making it worse. And then also cutting the funding for organizations and agencies that warn the people that those same disasters that we said weren't going to be as bad as they were coming your way, you just don't know about it as they count their money. Just curious if we see it yet, because they're showing it to us. The only way not to see it is to ignore it and go back to worshiping the guy that's killing you. President of the United States and his entire administration are out to kill as many Americans as possible. I got to do the damage report. I have another story about the Epstein list. Oh, I'm sorry. I mean, the Epstein list that doesn't exist. I'm going to do that after the damage report. I have to get that out as well. There's tons of things happening there as well. Maybe you guys can come back and jump on a live with me. It'll be just after TDR is done. It won't be for as long as I've even been on now, but I just want to get that story out. You know, it'll also go up on the watch list page later. So please watch Indisputable. Don't jump away from that. I just need to get that other story out. So I'm gonna jump it on as a live because I like doing it this way and talking to you guys. So it may have some bumps there, but either way it goes, you guys will see it today. I want you guys to see the disaster of everything that's going on. I didn't even touch the things that are going on with this bill. And what is it? They celebrated and smoked cigars outside of the Capitol afterwards. Again, as people die. I got to do the damage report. They're probably panicking by now. We'll see you guys in a couple of seconds. I have no idea what John's going to talk about because this has been controlling my entire morning. Thanks to you guys. We've got no thoughts and prayers for the victims. We just have anger and we need some action. That's what's next. We'll see you guys in a second.